I'm Karen.
I'm Kenny.
And this is our new shop, Polymath and Crust. We came up with the name Polymath and Crust because polymath actually means someone who is well versed in all sorts of languages or subjects. Someone who's like a Renaissance man. So maybe somebody like Da Vinci. Then that's why we came up with Polymath. And then Crust sort of reflects our love for geology. So it's like the Earth's crust. So yeah.
So that's how we came up with the name instantly, I guess. So shall we go in?
So this is our second shop. Here we specialize in non-fiction. So the different categories are like history, political science, which includes politics, economics, current affairs. And then we have maths and science, human science, which is like psychology, philosophy, anthropology, social science, and then natural sciences, which is one of our favorites, and travel narrative and food narrative.
So basically all this makes up the majority section of stores. Then we also have, of course, we have biographies. Biographies, of course, this one relates to all the non-fiction biographies, like say Hitler and Stalin, Gandhi. So these are a few sections that comprises what Polymath and Crust is, and it's considered quite a niche selection to an extent. History is always a key component for any non-fiction bookstore. We try to bring in some of the better titles, the better selection for history. We do rely a lot on online resources, for sure. It does help that there's a carryover experience from books, actually, that once you realize that that particular author is good at what he does or what she does, generally whatever that comes out is generally good or reasonable. You can't really get a very bad book out. And I guess non-fiction is slightly easier in a sense where, say you take a history title, if this particular author, say Max Hastings, he's famous for writing World War II related historical books. From the Japan perspective to the Britain perspective, he's always quite conclusive and comprehensive about his research and his writings. So whenever we see a new book from him, or even his previous books, we would gladly bring it in, knowing that the standard of quality in writing is always there and the research is always there. And I guess as a non-fiction bookstore, say history, the quality of the book really stands upon the research that was done previously before the book was published, in a sense.
And also, I suppose accessibility is one important criteria. That's why we brought in A Little History of the World by E.H. Gombrich. He's actually an art historian, and so this was actually his first project, if I'm not wrong. When he just graduated with a PhD, he was tasked to write a history of the world for children. So then he wrote this book, which is basically a history of the world, but in very simple terms. It's not too simple where he glances over too many unimportant subjects, but it's very easy to read. And for anybody who is not already familiar with history, you can actually just pick this up. It doesn't have to be for children. So yeah, it's one of our best sellers as well.
It's one of the key titles that we want to make sure we introduce to readers in Singapore, at least. Generally, I mean, if you go to any other bookstores, if they have a science, natural science section, I mean, the usual suspects is always like, Darwin. You always have Darwin. You will have Emerson, Ralph Waldo Emerson. And of late, Daniel Dennett is the famous one. So you will have his books, definitely. And even, I think, the bookstores will face it out on their tables. But on the side is that these are all good titles, so we'll definitely have it. Darwin, Emerson is classic, so we'll definitely have it. This particular series that you see here, the spines are all pretty colourful, but they go by very specific topics. They will choose a particular animal or insect. Say for them, this one is on swan. So this whole book basically introduces the historical, the natural portion of what the swan is, the mythology associated with it, and the art throughout the centuries altogether. So this is one of the more interesting series for us, but we know that generally the other bookstores try to not to carry because it doesn't sell as well. Yeah.